so much, Moni. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. This is the first. This is the first n8n meetup in Bulgaria, but it's not the first for me. I attended a few n8n meetups in San Francisco a couple of months ago. This was the event where n8n launched their new feature where you could build AI workflows using their chat. And one of the presenters showed a workflow where he's created the top fans of n8n on LinkedIn or something like this. And I'm like looking at this table, and I saw Moni. Very fun. Like, he was in top 30. And I was not surprised because he's talking about n8n all the time. And yeah, I just wanted to thank you, Moni, for starting this community. Moni is one of the best marketers I've ever seen, one of the best n8n engineers, so please applaud Moni. My name is Yavor. I'm founder of one of the biggest AI communities in Europe. It's called the Engineer Foundation, and it's the European chapter of one of the biggest AI communities in San Francisco. So I know how hard it is to start a community, so Moni, all the best, good luck. I'm also co-founder of an AI startup which is called Juma. And I'm also a professional athlete. I used to be in Bulgaria's national table tennis team. Not very useful to the keynote, but a bit of experience. I want to go back to 2023 when I met n8n for the first time. Before Juma, we rebranded a few months ago. The startup was called TeamGPT, and this is the very first version. It was pretty early in the AI days, so the most popular thing to build back then was building a ChatGPT wrapper, so this is what we did. We started as a hobby project. It was very, very sketchy. We were working with another startup. It was just like a side project. But it somehow took off, and we got 10,000 users with this super, super scrappy code, with this super, super scrappy UI, which was very shit, not gonna lie. But somehow it took off, and we got a lot of big clients like EY, Charles Schwab, and so on. And we understood that we have to actually make this work. So we did a complete rewrite of the software for 2 months, and we fixed all the stuff that were kind of broken. But then the problem came that we had to migrate 50,000 users from the first version to the newer one, and the first version was using MongoDB with a lot of broken data, and the new one was using PostgreSQL. And we reinvented the whole software, but how do you migrate 10 million messages, like many, many gigabytes of data from MongoDB to Postgres? This is a very, very hard technical task. So for this migration, we needed a visual way to actually do this. And this is my n8n workflow. And this is actually, some of the boxes, some of the nodes are actually separate workflows. So it's like a function calling another function. So it was like 30 workflows, the whole migration. We had to move their files, move their messages. It was so much data, and it was very, very hard. I was working on this for a couple of months. We migrated 50,000 users, 10 million messages. Because we have a lot of proprietary data, like we get the data of UI, Charles Schwab, and so on, we had to self-host it, which was also very hard because we were bootstrapping, started with no money, and we didn't have money for a decent infrastructure. So it was a very, very, very tough task. Not gonna lie. We connected to Slack, so we were getting notification for every migrated customer. This is a good day, so sometimes it wasn't working like this with all the green ones. This is the container. It was eating memory all the time. We had some bugs and stuff. And because the data was super, super inconsistent, because we were using non-relational database. Who's an engineer here, by the way? Okay, a lot of people. So yeah, a lot of the data was very inconsistent, and I think almost every possible bug or every possible problem with n8n. And this made me very proficient in fixing problems in n8n. I found a couple of bugs, filed a few issues, committed some PRs, because n8n is open source. So I really got to know how n8n works under the hood. So after we finished this migration, I hadn't used n8n like a lot. We had a couple of workflows for internal use, but we met again last year. As I told you, I'm co-founder of Juma. Juma is an AI workspace for marketing teams. It's a place where a marketing team or marketing agency uses AI agents, AI models, and n8n. Something that we found out is that a lot of the marketing teams already use n8n. And they use Juma, they use n8n. They were like, how can we use n8n inside Juma? We don't want to go to n8n and just click the button to execute the workflow. Can we start it from Juma and actually use my context from Juma and get the result in Juma? I don't want to go to n8n because it's easier for me. So what we did, I called MongoDB, of course. I was like, hey, let's do this. I'm not sure how it should work because I'm not the ICP, I'm not a marketer. And MongoDB is a great marketer. So we built it together. We were working for a couple of weeks. He was very helpful to provide all the feedback. And we made it work. I want to talk a bit about how important context is in your n8n workflows and when you use AI especially. You know, AI needs context. It needs the right information so you can get the best results. Even if you have the best n8n workflow, without giving it the right context, it's not going to work. So inside Juma, we've got this concept of projects. It's basically a knowledge base, and you can import data from all kinds of services like Google Drive, Slack, OneDrive, and thousands others. It doesn't really matter. It's the place where you create your important data that you want to use with workflows or the AI. We've got a lot of projects for internal use. This one is for customer support, and you can see on the right side, you can connect your data source and run voice. And at the bottom, there's automation. So you can connect your n8n workflows inside this project. How you do this, you just enter your n8n base URL, which is an instance in your API key, and then you just have to select your workflows, and they're going to be connected to your project. After they're connected to your project, it's very easy to involve them. You just have to tell the chat to start the workflow, and it's going to execute the workflow, and the output will be back in the chat, and you'll be able to continue chatting with the output. We will automatically detect if there's a variable. This is, I have picked very simple example so you can just understand how it works and how important it is. Mark is going to get a bit more technical with me in a bit. So I think it's going to be nicely balanced. This is a very simple workflow which gets you the YouTube transcript, and the YouTube video URL is the variable basically. It's the dynamic part of the workflow which will detect automatically and pass to the workflow. Inside this chart, our customer support is fully automated through Juma and n8n, and it's one of the cleanest examples how we can integrate it. Here, my colleague asked if they can get all unassigned tickets from HubSpot. We use HubSpot for customer support. The AI detects that we have a workflow that can pull the data from HubSpot. It involves the workflow, and it then returns all the tickets that are unassigned. Then you can ask the AI to draft a response to the first unassigned ticket, and obviously we have the answer somewhere in the knowledge base that we created as a project. We imported all of our previous tickets, we've got some website links, we've got a lot of data. So the AI now is going to go to our context and put information and draft a response using that context. And then you can send the response to the user using another workflow. So we've got workflows for different stuff, getting the tickets, answering them, closing them, and so on. So our teammate doesn't really need to go to HubSpot. And here they can close the ticket because they are spam basically. So we've got all kinds of workflows for using HubSpot. I'm an engineer, and with all the AI-generated code, together with my team, we open up to 20 PRs per day, and sometimes it gets a mess. So I connected my GitHub n8n workflow to Juma, and once a day I check how many open PRs there are. You can see today there are 14, which is a decent number. So I tell Juma, notify the dev team, please. We've got a workflow for Slack, and it's gonna pass the right channel to the n8n workflow, and this is the right channel for this is the development channel. So what it does is it sends a message to my colleagues, hey, close some PRs, here are all the open ones. I've put up LinkedIn posts from Monkata, who is working with Juma and n8n, and he's automating his keyword research. And I'm not a marketer, I can't do keyword research, but this video is amazing. He's automating his work. This is a very complicated workflow, and I'm very impressed what you can achieve when you use n8n and Juma. His workflow is very, very powerful, and after the workflow returns the data, he can continue using the output in the chat, asking clarifying questions, or using his data, he can trigger another workflow to continue his analysis. So definitely worth it. Also, when you invoke the workflow, we pass a lot of data from the project. We pass the whole chat history, we pass the knowledge base, we pass some extra information about the users. So if you use AI inside your n8n workflows, you can look a bunch of other cool stuff. Something that I want to talk about is how you can onboard your team to n8n workflows. What I've seen is usually on the team, the n8n knowledge is usually held by one person. Usually it's only one person who's done the workflows, and if this person disappears, I don't know what's going to happen. This is the usual case. Maybe not in every place, but this is my experience. So it's very important as Monkata did, vibe coded this application where his teammates can also be on board with the n8n workflows, actually use them and see what's going on. And yeah, these are the problems that usually appear. Except for the knowledge, permissions might be hard inside n8n. To get the project inside n8n, you need a more expensive license. UI might be tricky for very non-technical people. I know n8n is for non-technical people, but for people who aren't used to using a lot of softwares, it could still be much harder to go to n8n and find the right button compared to prompting a chat or something like this. These are all the projects inside our internal organization. All of these have connected n8n workflows for different use cases. So we've done a lot of internal automations for the sales team, for the marketing team. You can see the sales team has two workflows for getting a customer and changing their customer plans or whatever. Doesn't really matter, but all they do is just prompt in the chat, and the chat connects to n8n, and n8n does the work. About the integration, I spent a couple of weeks researching how to do this integration on the technical side, and it's not the most trivial thing to do. I know a lot of people talk about MCP. I tried that as well. How many of you have heard about MCP? Okay, great. I tried the MCP, but the nature of the MCP is like streaming. If you have a limit, like 5 minutes with n8n MCP or something like this, and some of Monkata's workflows take up to 20 minutes. The most interesting ones are very long, and you need infrastructure to support long-running workflows. And we figured out this. We have a native integration which allows you to run workflows no matter how long they are. And we also spent a lot of time on the UI UX. You've got automatic AI response. Once you get the data from n8n, Onboard is going to format it nicely for you. If it's a table data, you're going to see it in a nice way. If it's a file, it's going to get attached under the message. And it's very easy to reuse the data to trigger another workflow or continue the chat. So to recap, I told you about my n8n experience, how I was dealing with all this data and met almost every single problem that you can meet in n8n. This made me kind of proficient in n8n. Context is very important, not only in n8n, but with every task that you do with the AI. So make sure you curate your data and pass it to the workflow or to the AI. And if you can find a way to onboard your team to your workflows, this is going to be very powerful to the whole team. You can use Juma. A couple of weeks ago, I hosted an event here about some insights from San Francisco. I spent a couple of months in 2025. And I'm just going to share something very quick. A lot of people in San Francisco are talking about visual agent builders similar to n8n. And I'm not sure why, because there are a lot of big players like n8n, there are some competitors, and everyone now is obsessed with competing with them and introducing AI to this. But I'm kind of skeptical. Like OpenAI released their agent builder, Firefly released one, LangChain, and all of them do the same. And you can imagine that n8n has been around for like 10 years or something like this, like 7 years, okay, whatever. And they've been building open source integrations with thousands and thousands of softwares, and these ones have integrations with like 30 softwares. It's like very, very strange to me. And it's very interesting that they call it agent builder. To me, these are more like workflow builders, because an agent is basically a program which runs on its own until it decides to solve. And yeah, I don't think these are gonna beat n8n and the other big players on the market, but it's something that people are obsessed with in San Francisco, and I was very, very surprised. That's why I did it here. I'm gonna stop here.